Good morning, everybody, and here we are for another round of coffee and questions. And today's topic, we're going to talk about tech screws or self-drilling screws. They're kind of the same thing. Now, the other one that everybody gets confused is self-tapping, though those are a little bit different. Anyway, so we don't get these confused. You know, the self-tapping usually requires a pre-drilled hole. It's got a sharp point, and then you go ahead and you screw it through whatever you're doing, whether it's like sheet metal to wood or whatever you're doing. Now, self-drilling or the tech screws, that's a little bit different. So I'm going to change the picture, show you what I mean, and then I'll tell you how I use them. Give me just a second. All right, I went ahead and I put up a picture here. The one on the left, I exploded it as much as I could before it started getting a little fuzzy, so I stopped. And the one on the right, a little bit clearer. Now these are tech screws, okay, and you can tell because they have what they call a drill bit type point to them. And you can see in the picture over here where it looks like you get a drill bit with every screw that you buy, or over here on the left, it's the same thing. Now, the more common sizes, I feel, I mean, you might have a difference of opinion here, are number 3. They're fairly standard, number 3. And number 5, they're a little bit thicker, a little bit more heavy duty. Now, those are more meant for steel buildings and stuff. So I usually stick with the number 3s. So when somebody asks you what's the fastest way to tell, well, the self-drilling or the tech screws, they're the ones that look like you have a drill bit at the tip. Just take a look. It's that simple. Self-tapping, they won't have it that way. It'll be threaded all the way to the tip, and it'll have like a point on it. So that's the easiest and the fastest way to probably tell. It depends on what you need and what you're doing project-wise, and I'll explain that too as we go forward. Okay, so I made a list of the questions and stuff that are commonly asked about these, so we'll just go through them. You do not need to drill a pilot hole or anything like that. These are self-drilling, and they'll just tap themselves, and they'll go right into whatever you're doing. I usually use them to attach 2 pieces of steel together, but you can attach steel to wood, steel to aluminum, aluminum to aluminum, or whatever you need to do. And these work great. You just have to know what length, that you'd like to have them. And most all the hardware stores carry them. Now, these particular ones are a little bit of a specialty thing. You'll notice there's a rubber washer that's on there. When you go ahead and you secure these on steel to steel, it helps prevent like any rusting or stuff like that. Now, I don't think that they're really going to rust that much anyway. It just creates a much better seal. These are made out of high-grade stainless steel. Actually, I just took a quick look. It's made out of 410 stainless steel. So they shouldn't rust on you anyway, but it's just an added benefit to have these. And it's just the way that they came when I went down to the hardware store to buy them for a project that I needed. And I'll show you pictures of the project here in a minute, and I'll explain to you how I use them. Now, when you get down to the hardware store, you're going to have a decision to make. Now, the ones that I buy and the ones that I prefer, they cost you a little bit more, in a matter of cents. But I get the ones that have the bolt head. Now, you can get ones with Phillips head, flat Phillips head. You can get the pan head, or that's kind of rounded Phillips head. You can get different variations in the head of these screws, or these tech screws that we'll call them. So you have to kind of pick and choose. You might want something that's going to be flush because you countersunk it. You might want something different. Now, what I like about these is once I have them in these bolt head type, they can easily be unbolted if you need to unbolt something and replace it or remove it or move it around. So it's just my preference, but they make a different assortment of them, and you can pick and choose what's going to fit your project the best. Somebody made the comment, well, I don't have a drill press. You don't need one. You're not drilling a pilot hole. So you can use, your cordless drill or a corded drill. And like in this case, you put the right size socket on there and you're good to go. So don't worry, you don't need a drill press for anything. Let me change the picture. I'll show you the project and then we'll answer a few more questions. Give me just a sec. So I had somebody that had, it's like a trough. It's to hold bottles and so forth, and different types of spray and tack gear and stuff on the inside of the trailer. And that's what you see here in the picture. So they wanted me to go ahead and mount it on the inside and zap it into these aluminum studs. And they said, well, you're going to have to drill holes and you're going to have to figure out a way to get in back of these aluminum studs, to hold them with like 90-degree, kind of needle nose pliers or something. And I'm like sitting there thinking, oh, hell no. They had like 8 of these hooks that you see in the tray. That's 16, holes that I would have to drill. And then I'm not doing that way. So what I did is I knew about the Tek screws, and I went down to the hardware store and I bought the ones that you saw in the previous picture. And I came back and they went right through this plastic, they went right through the aluminum studs, and it secured the heck out of it. And all you have to do is be careful when you're drilling. Now, at first when you're drilling, and I have a cordless drill, I've got a DeWalt, and it's 20 volt, you know that when you start this and you have your cordless, there's a couple of things you want to be careful of where people make mistakes. Now, the first thing is I press hard, but run your drill slow. This is metal, it's not wood. So you want to go slow. All you're going to do by going fast is you're going to burn up your drill bits if you're using drill bits, and in this case Tek screws. You know, you're just going to burn them up and you're going to end up shooting it into this aluminum, and it's going to start to spin freely and you'll have stripped it out. You're going to be pissed off and all kinds of bad things happen. So what you want to do is I put weight behind it and I start slow and I go right on through, and you'll feel it grab. Okay, now once it grabs, I mean, just keep going, you know, right on through until you feel it tighten up and secure. Now the second part of this is to use the clutch that's on your cordless drill. Now I turn mine down, so I know I'm down below that stripping, you know, part of things. And then as I do these, the first one, you know, I can increase the clutch just a little by little until I have it to where when it goes in, it goes all the way and tightens, and then, you know, the clutch part of it kicks in, so you don't over tighten these. I mean, if you do, you're screwed. Then you're gonna have to go down and get either like a bigger Tek screw, or you just messed it up and you're gonna have to use a bolt, or you're gonna have to figure out some other means. But use it correctly. I'll go over it one more time. I mean, before we're done, and I'll show you the pictures. Use it correctly. These things go fast. I was able to put up all of the hooks. I was able to do everything that she wanted me to do, and I was able to do it probably, once I had everything that I needed, in probably 30 minutes. It's just a matter of where do you want the hook. They pointed, I marked the hole with a felt marker. That's all I did. Just like in this picture, you'll see on the upper part of that stud, you'll see that little black mark. I marked it, I set a level across it when I did the other side, and like I said, I just went ahead and I just zapped these things in, and they work great. They secure really hard, really well. You just have to be careful how you're doing. Let me change the picture, we'll keep moving. Okay, I threw up a couple more pictures of the project. Let's take the one on the upper right for a second. Now the one on the upper right, you can see I put that first hook up there exactly where she wanted it. I just took a Sharpie, I marked the inside of the hole, grab one of these Tek screws, put it up there, put the weight behind it, like I said, go slow. I had my clutch set, and I went right on in, and it zapped it up there, and I firmly tightened it down. Don't over tighten them though, okay? If you do, especially going into aluminum or steel for that fact, you can strip these out. So if you take your time, you do it correctly, these things work perfect. Once the first one was up there, I set a level across to the other side. You can barely see it. I almost ended up cutting it out, but I went ahead and I put the second one up. So we ended up putting up all 8 of these really quickly the way she wanted them, and it beats the heck out of drilling holes and using bolts, you know, with angled needle nose pliers to try to hold the, you know, the bolt behind there while you're trying to, you know, line these up. I mean, to screw them together, that, I mean, just it would take you a long time, not impossible, but this is faster, it's better. Now let's take a look at one over here on the left. Now the one on the left here, this is a more close-up, and you can see even with that little, you know, rubber kind of a washer on there, and you can see how I set these right on into, you know, that aluminum stud. Again, this isn't hard to do. It was quick, it was easy. You know, it's not going to hold an enormous amount of weight, but it'll hold all the weight, you know, that they're going to put in there with feed bags or by hanging, you know, different kinds of riding gear and stuff like that. It's more than adequate for this kind of a project. So this is my suggestion. Okay, so let's recap. I mean, when you mark these and you go to drill them, you want to put good weight behind them. You can use a corded drill, you can use a cordless drill. I used a cordless 20 volt DeWalt, like I said, and I was able to do these very easily. Okay, you put your weight behind it, you go slow. Remember, your drill bits, these Tek screws, they're going to do better for you. You won't burn up your drill bits. You got to go slow. It's still, look at it as metal. Take your time. You'll feel it grab. When you do, if you have your clutch set correctly, it's going to go all the way in. It's going to secure nice and firm and hard, and you're not going to have any problems with it. So those are my suggestions. That's my best advice. If you're using drill bits, I had a friend of mine with a drill bit, and he kept burning them up. The reason why, he was running his drill press at a high speed, and he just figured, well, if he just took his time and went up and down and used oil, that everything's going to be fine. You'll ruin your drill bits. I mean, so you want to go slow, especially when you're dealing with any kind of a metal. That's just some advice. Now, any other questions, and I'll answer them, and we'll wrap this up. What about using a hammer drill? Yeah, you can. I mean, you know, I'm sure that would work fine. I have one. I just didn't need it, to be honest with you. I mean, my 20-volt cordless worked perfectly fine. But yeah, nothing wrong with it if you want to use a hammer drill. Do I need clamps? Well, if I'm working on something on my workbench instead of like this trailer here, yeah, I would use a clamp. I mean, it prevents metal from moving around on you. It also prevents the fact that when you go through this with these Tek screws, you go through that first piece, and then between the first piece and the second piece, it'll shift on you, and your alignment's going to be out of whack. So kind of anytime I can, as a safety issue, that I don't want that to happen, I go ahead and I use clamps because it holds everything firmly. But that's when you can do it. Now on the inside of the trailer, I couldn't do that. So what was is the other person that was with me went ahead and held the bottom of the hook by hand, you know, nice and tight, and then I did the second hole. So I mean, you know, yeah, but you know, you have a point. If I can use a clamp, yes, I would. Kind of a repeat question, but I'll answer it. What happens if you do strip one out? Well, then you're going to have to resort to a bolt. Hopefully that you'll be able to put a bolt in there and then get to the back side of it. I've done that before, and I have stripped them out. It's not that I haven't. And it sucks because I had to use a pair of 90-degree bent needle nose to get in back of the piece of metal I was working on to hold the nut in order to put the bolt through and then tighten it up. Now, that's, you know, the easier way, I think, to do it and still have an incredibly, you know, secure hook or whatever you're doing. I'm sure there are other methods. People can drop them in the comments below and, you know, let me know what they think. I think my overall point here is you don't need to overcomplicate this. I mean, yes, there's a difference between self-tapping screws and self-drilling, and the self-drilling are called Tek screws usually. But all of these are used interchangeably, and people will call the ones that we're talking about, they'll still call them self-tapping. There's a little bit of confusion. They just throw the same term out there for everything. But if you're in doubt, when you go into one of the better hardware stores where the people are more knowledgeable, they'll take you over to the section. You'll see the assortment of these in all different lengths. You'll see the number 3s, the number 5s, and so on, and you can pick and choose what you're going to need. I'm just telling you, I use a number 3s. It's fairly standard, and it's worked for me on all of the projects, you know, that I've done. I like to keep a few bags of them in my welding cart, probably 1 inch, 1.5 inch, something like that. I use them on different projects. It's nice when you run into that situation. You wish you had them. You reach over, you got them. You're not having to stop everything you're doing, put everything away, and run to the hardware store. So they are handy to have around to use from time to time. Now, the ones that I buy, they're fairly expensive. They run probably 30 to 40 cents each. Okay, so if you want to find some online that are a lot cheaper, it's just the hardware store I run down to. I'm in a pinch. I got to, you know, I need them now. I don't want to wait and have them shipped and buy them from a cheaper place. And, you know, I pass that cost on. I mean, it's not a huge cost, but I'm saying for Tek screws or for these self-drilling screws, they're not cheap if you get good ones. All right, I'm the Home Handyman. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I will see you folks on the next video. I hope you click subscribe. Keep following me. Thank you. You folks have a good day. Bye-bye.